Good evening. Welcome to episode 10 of Blue Connections 2020. My name is Donna Ozarko, and I am the Manager of Officials and Publications for Softball Canada.
And I'm Jeff Whipple, National Director of Umpires. Welcome to episode 10 of Blue Connections. If you've joined us before, we're excited that you've joined us again for this webinar journey. If you're new to the series, Blue Connections 2020 is designed to bring umpires together virtually to learn from some of our country's leading officials. These webinars focus on basic techniques and expectations for officials and will reference best practices on game mechanics, management, and fitness from both the WBSC and Softball Canada.
And just a reminder that all sessions will be recorded and available on our Softball Canada Umpire YouTube channel and Facebook pages. If you have any questions for Susan, you can leave them in the chat section, and we will pass the questions along to Susan in the end. Appeal plays are some of the trickiest situations an umpire might face. When does a coach get a choice of outcomes? What are their options? International umpire and self-confessed rules junkie Susan Strafford will look at some of the tricks to make sure you get it right in every game.
With over 30 years of umpiring experience, Susan Strafford obtained her international certification in 2008. Since then, Susan's represented Canada at numerous international events. She seems to have a fondness particularly for Colombia. She's currently the umpire-in-chief of BC. People from across the country and around the world know Susan as a rules hound, and she's more in her happiest place when she's probably got a rule book in her hand talking about a rule. Susan, thank you so much for taking time to join us this evening and leading us through tonight's webinar on option plays.
Appeal plays.
Appeal plays. Where am I going? There we go.
I don't know.
Just blame the heat, Jeff.
I can do option plays if you want.
No, it's all yours, Susan. Appeal plays.
Okay.
Okay.
Where's my share screen? On my screen. Hang on while I just get the right screen up for everybody. Okay. We are going to cover appeal plays. Everybody has appeal plays in their system. In their wheel box, we have to do a bunch of them. So in fast pitch, there's 10 appeal plays, and in slow pitch, there's 11. What is an appeal play? An appeal play is something that we can't make a judgment on until such time as the non-offended team comes and asks us a question. Could be, we're gonna cover some of them. We don't have time to cover all 11 or 12 or 10 or 11. Sorry, they changed it a couple years ago. Does anyone know what the extra one in slow pitch is? It's actually the commitment line for those of you that are slow pitch umpires. One of the most common appeals that is made is for a runner missing a base. Runners can miss any base that's out there, and a lot of times players and or coaches don't see it. When I'm discussing at clinics with players, I say somebody should always be watching. When a runner misses a base as an umpire, we can't do anything until somebody asks us a question. In fact, in softball, we have a choice of either doing a live ball appeal or a dead ball appeal. A live ball appeal where it would be where they throw the ball, say they think a runner missed second base, they'll throw the ball to second base and ask the umpire they missed the base. We don't want a live ball appeal unless we absolutely have to have one. So if you hear players nattering about somebody missing a base, call time and say, what is your question? And then all they have to do is say the runner missed second base. And if you saw it, then you just call an out. They don't need to throw the ball anywhere. The pitcher doesn't have to go on the rubber. You don't have to put the ball back in play. They just need to ask the question. They can appeal more than one person missing a base, but they can't go runner one missed second base and you say, no, they didn't. Runner two missed second base and you say, no, they didn't. They say runner three missed second base, and then they can't guess. But if multiple runners missed bases, then they can absolutely appeal multiple runners missing a base. As an umpire, it's really important that you're watching runners touching every base as much as possible. When it's a 2-umpire system or a 1-umpire system and you have multiple runners, it can be very tough. But you always want to be watching people. Another common one that you'll see is leaving a base too soon on a fly ball. The runner is eligible to leave the base at the first touch. Excuse me. Not when the ball is caught, but the first touch. As an umpire, you need to make sure that you have everything in your line of sight to see if they leave the base too soon. Now again, they can do a live ball appeal or a dead ball appeal. They'll do the live ball appeal if they think they've got the runners coming back. That's when you're going to get a live ball appeal. If it's an after the fact thing, that's when you're likely to get the dead ball appeal. But again, a lot of those happen and nobody says anything, and it's an appeal play, so we can't do anything until somebody appeals to us. Personally, I hate it when they don't appeal. We're missing free outs. Somebody should always be watching that. But as an umpire, you have to make sure that you're watching every base runner tag up on a fly ball. Attempting to go to second base is another one. The batter runner can overrun first base, and it doesn't matter which way they turn to come back to first base. Has no bearing on anything. They can turn left, they can turn right. What they cannot do without when they turn to go to second base and make any motion towards second base, they are now liable to be put out. This is the one appeal, and the one appeal only, that has to be done as a live ball appeal. Because if they attempt to go to second, then they need to be tagged out or go to second. If they come back to first base, there's nothing left to appeal. So that one will always, always, always be a dead ball or a live ball appeal. But they have to make a motion to second base. They can't just run up the line, stop, turn to the left and come back to first base, and that's an attempt. That's not an attempt. They have to make a turn and attempt to go to second base. Okay, we've talked about live ball versus dead ball. We always want to make sure, always, always, always get a dead ball appeal if you can. Some, like the attempting to go to second base, that has to be a live ball appeal. A runner leaving too soon on a fly ball, that's likely to be a live ball appeal. But always try for a dead ball appeal if you can. So those are the most common ones, but there's a whole bunch other ones that we didn't cover. One is batting out of order. my all-time favorite rule. For anybody that knows me and knows that I'm quirky and I love my rules, batting out of order is one of my favorites. Batting out of order, people want to get really complicated with it. There's 3 scenarios for batting out of order. If it's appealed to you while the batter's up at bat, you just put the correct batter in and continue on. If the batter's completed their turn at bat and then it's appealed, the person who was supposed to be up is out, and the next batter is the one following them, unless they were just up and they went out, then you move on. And the third scenario is when you have a pitch thrown to the illegal batter, they now become the legal batter and you continue on from there. It's pretty straightforward. As a coach, the time you want to appeal is after the batter has completed their turn at bat, because then you're guaranteed of an out. An illegal substitution is another appeal play, and another one that can get very involved with a lot of things, that people want to make things more complicated than they actually are. For an illegal substitute means the coach didn't tell you they were putting somebody into the game. So if the coach puts somebody into the game but doesn't tell you, and the other team goes, "Did you get that sub?" and you say no, that person becomes an illegal substitute. And it all depends on when that's appealed. And again, an appeal play is something we can't make a call on until somebody comes and asks us. So the coach comes and the batter goes up and hits a triple, and it's an illegal substitution, and the non-offended coach comes up and goes, "Did you get a substitution for that?" And you go, "Nope." "Okay, they're an illegal sub." Well, they're now out and removed from the game and ruled ineligible, and a legal sub has to come in, and the triple doesn't count and all runs don't count. If it happens on defense, that's where you get an option play. We talked about option plays. Jeff thought I was doing a thing on option plays. Well, this is where you get your option play in for an illegal sub. You can either have the batter come back to bat like nothing happened, or you take the result of the play. It's pretty straightforward. Right? Illegal reentry. An illegal reentry is something that shouldn't happen without an illegal substitute, because we should not allow coaches to do an illegal reentry. But an illegal reentry is where a coach tries to enter somebody, either a substitute who's already been used, back into the game, or re-enter a starting player into a different position than they were in the starting lineup. For instance, if they were batting in position 2 and the coach takes them out and then tries to put them back into batting position 4, that is an illegal re-entry. And it is not allowed, but we shouldn't allow the coach to do that. If that's appealed, and it needs to be appealed anytime that illegal re-entry is in the game. The same with an illegal substitute. It has to be done while they're still in the game. The coach goes and appeals, and yes, you have an illegal re-entry. Well, an illegal re-entry means that both the player and the coach are ejected. Not removed, they're ejected, which means they have to leave the park and you need a new coach to coach the team. For the illegal substitution, if a coach puts a player in and doesn't tell you, excuse me, if they tell you before the other coach appeals anything, then that is a legal sub. They just have to get to you before the other coach. So if they forget for 3 pitches and then go, "Wow, I forgot to enter that person," then they can enter that person and it's still a legal sub. when I'm teaching minors about illegal substitutions, I always tell the players, if you're playing in a game and the coach puts you in, check with the umpire to make sure that the coach actually did enter you. Another one of those quirky appeal plays is the runner switching position. Now, we all know that rules come from something that has happened in a game somewhere. Personally, I've never had runners switching positions. However, it apparently has happened. This is one of the out of the norm rules in the rule book. If the runner switching position is appealed, and it can be appealed at any point in, as long as one of the runners switched is still on base, then the runners who switched position are both out and their run's nullified and the coach is ejected. So say you have, just for simplicity's sake, runners 1, 2, and 3 on base on first, second, and third. The offense calls time, they all go in, and now you end up with runner 3, 2, and 1. So they've switched 1 and 3. And then the next person hits a single and scores runner 1, who was supposed to be at first base. The other coach appeals because the runner that started at third that switched over and went to 1 is still on base. Then that run is nullified and that person's out, and the other runner is out, and the coach is ejected. So it has to be, well, either one of them is still on base. And the logic behind that is, say runners at first and third switched and the person hit an out of the park home run. The fact that they switched bases really has absolutely no bearing on the outcome of whether they would have scored or not. It doesn't matter that the fastest runner was on first or third. It's an out of the park home run. So that's why there has to be a runner still on base. Another one of the appeal plays is an illegal pitcher returning to pitch. Once a pitcher is removed from the game for conferences, doesn't mean the coach just took them out because they weren't doing well. They've been removed because they were the pitcher of record when the 4th conference in the first 7 innings happened. Well, that pitcher can no longer pitch. They can play anywhere else, but they can't come back in as a pitcher. So again, if they're coming off the bench, the coach should be notifying you that they're coming in to pitch, and you could say no. But if it's somebody coming from a different position in the infield and the other team appeals, they're an illegal pitcher and they are not allowed to be back in there. And then the last thing we're going to cover is a withdrawn or replacement player not being notified to the umpire. So the replacement player is a player that goes in to the game to replace somebody who has to have medical treatment, either for bleeding or for concussion, because we have the new concussion protocol, which follows the replacement player. Whenever that happens, the coach has to come and tell you who's going in for that person. And the replacement player can play the rest of that inning and the full next inning. They need to tell you when they're putting a replacement player in, and then they have to tell you when their withdrawn player is coming back, or if they're not coming back, give you a legal sub. If that doesn't happen, that is also an appeal play. So there's lots of things that coaches can ask, which is why lineup card management is very, very important, to keep track of who's coming in and who's going out and where and when, so you know what's happening there. So that would be that would be an appeal play, and it would follow the same rules as an illegal substitution. So if they were at bat, say they came in the bottom of the third inning and played the fourth inning, and now it's the top of the fifth inning, which means we need a legal sub or that withdrawn player back, and they're up at bat and they get a hit, well, they're now out and declared ineligible. So follows the same rules as an illegal substitution. So your most common ones you're going to see are missing a base and leaving a base too soon on a fly ball. Those are going to be the two that are going to happen the most, and they're going to be the ones that are missed the most in a game. We as umpires need to be watching for them at all times, because there's nothing worse than having an appeal come to you and you didn't see it. If you didn't see it, you must call safe. You can't say, oh, I think they may have. You need to make sure of it. If they're appealing home plate, so the runner misses home plate as they go by, the catcher can stand on the base with the ball in their hand and say they missed home plate. Don't give it to them if they just happen to have their ball in their hand and walk across home plate to get to the pitcher and have no idea that the runner missed. But if they stand on home plate and say she missed, you can call that out if she did in fact miss. She can still come back and tag it before the catcher does that, but the catcher can, because the batter has nowhere to go. If they're on their way to the dugout and the catcher's standing there, you have an out. So missing a base and leaving a base too soon. Always be watching and make sure of the call before you make the call. These are not guessing calls. Oh, I think maybe she did. Missing a base and leaving a base too soon, when appealed, results in an out, which can be a major game changer in certain situations. So always be sure it's not a guessing game, and it's not trying to find extra outs. It's about making sure that you are correct. The one you'll probably get the most argument about is the runner attempting to go to second base. One thing to watch out for is in the college game in the US, and there's a couple of teams that do this well, and if teams have been watching, they have a play, it was actually started at the University of Washington, because the rules are different, where you can run up past first base and you start walking back to first base, and then you take off for second base while the pitcher's in the circle. You cannot do that in Canada. Right? You're out for a leadoff. The making an attempt to go to second is part of your original motion. So if they run past first and make a big round like they're going to second base and come back to first, they're liable to be tagged out. And they must be tagged. You can't have somebody just step on first base because they could just go to second base. They have to be tagged, which is why it's a live ball appeal. So those are your 10 fast pitch appeal plays. Does anybody have any questions?
Oh, Sue, of course we do.
Yay! Yay!
Yeah, so we've got a few questions here from our audience this evening.
Okay.
So the first one is coming to you from Colombia, Juan Felipe Ortega, and actually he has a couple of questions.
In English?
In English, yes. Juan's been here every day.
Okay.
So first thing he asked was, why do we prefer to have a dead ball appeal over a live ball appeal? And I think that's a really critical question to ask.
That is a very good question. We prefer the dead ball appeal because nobody can advance. right? On a live ball appeal, runners can run, players can go everywhere. A dead ball appeal means that nobody can go anywhere. For those of us that remember when we didn't have dead ball appeals, it was a track meet. Very good point, Juan. I think I had that in my notes, but this is a new program to me, so.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, because you could have somebody doing an appeal and the umpire's attention is on the appeal and the defense is trying to make an appeal, and somebody at third base takes off for home, and
Yeah.
then it's just nicer and cleaner to get the play killed if you can. So Juanita has another question. If there's an illegal player on defense and there is a play and that player doesn't participate in the play, but it's appealed, is there an option?
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't want to get it wrong, so I'm going to look it up. This is always my way.
That's why you're the rules guru, woman.
Well, you see, when you have three different rule books floating around in your head, you don't want to mess it up. It only has that they are making a play.
Yeah. Which brings up the question for coaches is, we've always talked about coaches, is if you know that there's an illegal unannounced player on defense,
do you wait?
Oftentimes coaches will wait.
Yep.
Until that player is involved in a play.
Yep.
Right.
They know if they have a good team manager or scorekeeper, they know what's happening and they're waiting for the right time.
Yeah. So that's a great strategy for coaches.
Yeah.
Moose has a question.
Hi, Moose.
Is a step required to be an attempt to run to second base, or is a sudden upper body motion, like a head fake, in order to fake and a fielder, also considered an attempt?
I don't require a step. If you make a motion towards second base where you're trying to say that I'm going to second base, that's a motion to second base.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So especially if you're trying to fake a throw or to fake to draw some attention, absolutely. So to come back, Al Johnson has our last question. In a 2-umpire system, how would you divide up the bases in your pregame in terms of who's responsible for making the calls on missed bases, all those kinds of things?
Well, to me, every scenario is different, and it's definitely something you want to pregame. Generally, it depends on how many runners you have on base. If there's nobody on base, then the base umpire can handle everything. If you have multiple runners, if I'm the plate umpire, I'm going to take home in third, depending on the timing of things. And the base umpire will take first and second, but they may have to take first, second, and third if there's a lot of things happening at home plate. It's one of those things you definitely have to pregame to make sure that you have coverage, and there's nothing to stop you from watching, whether it's the base umpire's responsibility or not. Say you have a runner on one and a batter hits a single, there's nothing wrong with you watching the runner touch first and or second to help out the base umpire, because they might be touching at exactly the same time. So as a plate umpire, there's nothing stopping you from watching other bases, and then your partner has the ability to come to you to ask for help.
And I would add to that, Susan. I would say whoever normally would have had a call on a play at a base, like if there was going to be a tag play there or a force play at that base, whoever had the primary responsibility would have the primary responsibility on any appeal play made at that base. So
Yeah,
if it's
the
if it's
most common one is when there's like runners on first and second and there's a single hit.
Yeah.
Even though if there was the first play at third base was likely to be the base umpire, I'm still watching that runner touch third because the base umpire's got the batter, runner, and second base.
Yep. So no, that's a good answer to that. And we have one final question. Brad Craven wants to sneak one in. This
Okay.
might take a while. On the batting order, if an injury occurs and the coach or player running the injured team doesn't inform the other team of the umpire or the umpire that a second player needs to be removed from the game to take the injured player to the hospital, is it not batting out of order in unlimited substitution slow pitch?
Jeff,
Yeah.
I'm not even sure I understand the question.
Well, I think so. The question is, so you've got unlimited substitution slow pitch, and I'm gonna preface this with I'm not a slow pitch guy, and there's so many. So even in unlimited substitution slow pitch, there would not be in our rule book a rule covering that because it's not
Yeah.
part of our rules. It's a league rule. So Brad, you would have to ask the league what they would see in that situation because it's not part of our rule book. So we're going to sort of try to leave it at that. I don't think that's something that we could really get into here.
That was my question because I didn't remember a slow pitch rule that said unlimited substitutions.
Yeah, so that it's a very common thing they do in recreational slow pitch, and
They
that's
do it
great.
in fast pitch too.
And yeah, and fast pitch, and sometimes you have, everybody bats and all of those things, but those aren't rule book rules, and so those would have to be, I guess, addressed at the local level by whoever's running that tournament. Cool. Well, that wraps it up. We don't have any other questions on the docket right now.
Okay.
But thank you so much, Susan. This was a wonderful way to end our spring and summer series, episode 10 tonight, and we're just looking ahead to the fall and seeing what we might do. But we appreciate you taking the time and sharing with us this evening.
Anytime, and anybody wants to do rules anytime, let me know.
So that completes episode 10 of Blue Connections 2020 webinar series. Thanks to Susan for sharing her time and expertise this evening. And a special thanks goes out to Level 5 umpire Darren Gerwar for his work as co-producer on this series.
Hey, thanks, Susan, and it's great to see you again, and hopefully we'll be out on the field soon and just hanging out and doing what we should be doing. And this is the final version of Blue Connections Spring Summer Series. Stay tuned for future episodes. Thank you to all our fantastic presenters, and of course to you, Darren and Jeff, for pulling this all together. Check back to our Softball Canada Umpire YouTube channel for all 10 fantastic presentations. And thank you guys, and good night, everyone.
Good
Good night,
night.
all. Thank you.